Okay, ready? We're getting to the exciting part. Chronicles of Narnia. This is the last battle. That's their god Tash. And this is chapter 11, The Pace Quickens. That's King Tyrion. Okay, so remember that in the last chapter, they were trying to expose the lie and got the truth or the lie got twisted again and put them in a very bad position. But then things did not go as expected as far as the stable. And when things started falling apart, the king, who just had 7 of his people with him, okay, everybody back at the home front was killed. He stands up and he issues a challenge. This is the last part of chapter 10. So let me read that to you and then we'll start chapter 11. Okay, so now it's on. Okay. Here stand I, Tyrion of Narnia, in Aslan's name, to prove with my body that Tash is a foul fiend, the ape a manifold traitor, and these Kellermans worthy of death. To my side, all true Narnians, would you wait till your new masters have killed you all one by one? So there's the call to the battle. Okay, chapter 11, The Pace Quickens. Quick as lightning, Rishta Tarkan leapt back out of the reach of the king's sword. He was no coward and would have fought single-handed against Tyrion and the dwarf if need be, but he could not take on the eagle and the unicorn as well. He knew how eagles can fly into your face and peck at your eyes and blind you with their wings, and he had heard from his father, who had met Narnians in battle, that no man, except with arrows or a long spear, can match a unicorn, for it rears on its hind legs as it falls upon you, and then you have its hoofs and its horn and its teeth to deal with all at once. So he rushed into the crowd and stood calling out, to me, warriors of the Tisroc, may he live forever. To me, all loyal Narnians, lest the wrath of Tashlin fall upon you." While this was happening, 2 other things happened as well. The ape had not realized his danger as quickly as the Tarkan. For a second or so he remained squatting beside the fire, staring at the newcomers. Then Tyrion rushed up upon the wretched creature, picked it up by the scruff of its neck, and dashed back to the stable, shouting, "Open the door!" Pagan opened it. "Go and drink your own medicine, shift," said Tyrion, and hurled the ape through into the darkness. But as the dwarf banged the door shut again, a blinding greenish-blue light shone out from the inside of the stable. The earth shook, and there was a strange noise, a, a clucking and screaming as if it was the hoarse voice of some monstrous bird. The beast moaned and howled and called out, "Tashlin, hide us from him." And many fell down, and many hid their faces in their wings or paws. No one except Farsight the eagle, who had the best eyes of all living things, noticed the face of Rishta Tarkan at that moment. And from what Farsight saw there, he knew at once that Rishta was just as surprised and nearly as frightened as everyone else. "There goes one," thought Farsight, "who has called on gods he does not believe in. How will it be with him when they really come?" The third thing, which also happened at the same moment, was the only really beautiful thing that night. Every single talking dog in the whole meeting, there were 15 of them, came bounding and barking joyously to the king's side. They were mostly great big dogs with thick shoulders and heavy jaws. Their coming was like the breaking of a great wave on the sea beach. It nearly knocked you down. For though they were talking dogs, they were just as doggy as they could be, and they all stood up and put their front paws on the shoulders of the humans and licked their faces, all saying at once, "Welcome, welcome. We'll help. Show us how to help. Show us how. How. It was so lovely that it made you want to cry. This, at last, was the sort of thing they had been hoping for. And when, a moment later, several little animals, mice and moles and a squirrel or so, came pattering up, squealing with joy and saying, see, we're here, and then after that, the bear and the boar came too. Eustace began to feel that perhaps, after all, everything might be going to come all right. But Tyrion gazed round and saw how very few of the animals had moved. To me, he called. Have you all turned cowards since I was your king? We daren't, whimpered dozens of voices. Tashlin would be angry. Shield us from Tashlin. Where are all the talking horses? Said Tyrion to the boar. We've seen, squealed the mice. The ape has made them work. They're all tied, down at the bottom of the hill. Then all you little ones, said Tyrion, you nibblers and gnawers and nutcrackers, away with you as fast as you can scamper and see if the horses are on our side. And if they are, get your teeth into the ropes and gnaw until the horses are free and bring them hither. With a good will, sire, came the small voices, and with a whisk of tails and those sharp-eyed and sharp-toothed folks were off. Tyrion smiled from mere love as he saw them go. But it was already time to be thinking of other things. Rishta Tarkan was giving his orders. Forward, he said, take all of them alive if you can and hurl them into the stable or drive them into it. When they are all in, we will put fire to it and make them an offering to the great god Tash. Ha! Said Farsight to himself. So that is how he hopes to win Tash's pardon for his unbelief. The enemy line, about half of Rishta's forces, was now moving forward, and Tyrion had barely time to give his orders. Out on the left, Jill, and try to shoot all that you may before they reach us. Boar and bear next to her. Poggin on my left, Eustace on my right. Hold the right wing, Jewel. Stand by and puzzle and use your hooves. Hover and strike. Farsight, you and dogs just behind us. Go in among them after the sword play has begun. Aslan to our aid! Eustace stood with his heart beating terribly, hoping and hoping that he would be brave. He had never seen anything, though he had seen both a dragon and a sea serpent, that made his blood run so cold as that line of dark-faced, bright-eyed men. There were 15 Calormans, a talking bull of Narnia, Slinky the fox, and Raggle the satyr. Then he heard a twang and a zip on his left, and one Calorman fell. Then twang and zip again, and the satyr was down. Oh, well done, daughter, came Tyrion's voice, and then the enemy was upon them. Eustace could never remember what happened in the next 2 minutes. It was all like a dream, the sort you have when your temperature is over 100, until he heard Rishta Tarkan's voice calling out from the distance, Retire! Back hither and reform! Then Eustace came to his senses and saw the Calormans scampering back to their friends, but not all of them. 2 lay dead, pierced by Jewel's horn, 1 by Tyrion's sword. The fox lay dead at his own feet, and he wondered if it was he who had killed it. The bull was also down, shot through the eye by an arrow from Jill and gashed in his side by the boar's tusk. But the Narnian side had its losses too. 3 dogs were killed, and a 4th was hobbling behind the line on 3 legs and whimpering. The bear lay on the ground, moving feebly. Then it mumbled in its throaty voice, bewildered to the last, I don't understand. Laid its big head down on the grass as quietly as a child going to sleep, and never moved again. In fact, the first attack had failed. Eustace didn't seem able to be glad about it. He was so terribly thirsty, and his arm ached so. As the defeated Kellermans went back to their commander, the dwarves began cheering at them. Had enough, darkies, they yelled. Don't you like it? Why doesn't your great Tarkan go and fight himself instead of sending you to be killed? Poor darkies. Dwarves, cried Tyrion, come here and use your swords, not your tongues. There is still time, dwarves of Narnia. You can fight well, I know. Come back to your allegiance. Ha! sneered the dwarfs. Not likely. You're just as big a humbugs as the other. We don't want any kings. The dwarfs are for the dwarfs. Boo! Then the drum began. Not a dwarf drum this time, but a big bull's hide Kellerman drum. The children from the very first hated the sound. Boom, 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 ba-boom it went. But they would have hated it far worse if they had known what it meant. Tyrion did. It meant that there were other Kellerman troops somewhere near and that Rishta Tarkan was calling them to his aid. Tyrion and Jewel looked at one another sadly. They had just begun to hope that they might win that night, but it would be all over with them if new enemies appeared. Tyrion gazed despairingly around. Several Narnians were standing with the Kellermans, whether through treachery or an honest fear of Tashlin. Others were sitting still, staring, not likely to join either side. But there were a few animals now. The crowd was much smaller. Clearly, several of them had just crept quietly away during the fighting. Boom, boom, ba-ba-ba-boom went the horrible drum. Then another sound began to mix with it. Listen, said Jewel, and then look, said Farsight. A moment later there was no doubt what it was. With a thunder of hooves, with tossing heads, widened nostrils, and waving manes, over a score of talking horses of Narnia came charging up the hill. The gnawers and nibblers had done their work. Poggin the dwarf and the children opened their mouths to cheer, but that cheer never came. Suddenly the air was full of the sound of twanging bowstrings and hissing arrows. It was the dwarves who were shouting. For a moment, Jill could hardly believe her eyes. They were shooting the horses. Dwarves are deadly archers. Horse after horse rolled over. Not one of those noble beasts ever reached the king. Little swine! Shrieked Eustace, dancing in his rage. Dirty, filthy, treacherous little brutes! Even Jewel said, Shall I run after those dwarfs, sire, and spit 10 of them on my horn at each plunge? But Tyrion, with his face as stern as stone, said, Stand fast, Jewel. If you must weep, sweetheart, this to Jill. Turn your face aside and see you wet not your bowstring. And peace, Eustace. Do not scold like a kitchen girl. No warrior scolds. Courteous words or else hard knocks are his only language. But the dwarves jeered back at Eustace. That was a surprise for you, little boy, eh? You thought we were on your side, did you? No fear. We don't want any talking horses. We don't want you to win any more than the other gang. You can't take us in. The dwarfs are for the dwarfs. Mr. Tarkin was still talking to his men, doubtless making arrangements for the next attack, and probably wishing he had sent his whole force into the first. The drum boomed on. Then, to their horror, Tyrion and his friends heard, far fainter, as if from a long way off, an answering drum. Another body of Kellermans had heard Rishta's signal and were coming to support him. You would not have known from Tyrion's face that he had now given up all hope. Listen, he whispered in a matter-of-fact voice. We must attack now, before yonder miscreants are strengthened by their friends. Bethink you, sire, said Poggin, that here we have the good wooden wall of the stable at our backs. If we advance, shall we not be encircled and get sword points between our shoulders? I would say as you do, dwarf, said Tyrion, were it not that their very plan is to force us into the stable. The further we are from its deadly door, the better. The king is right, said Farsight, away from this cursed stable and whatever goblin lives in there at all costs. Yes, too, let's, said Eustace. I'm coming to hate the very sight of it. Good, said Tyrion. Now look yonder to our left. You see a great rock that gleams white like marble in the firelight. First we fall upon those Kellermans. You, maiden, shall move out on our left and shoot as fast as ever as you may into their ranks, and you, Eagle, fly at their faces from the right. Meanwhile, we others will be charging them. When we are so close, Jill, that you can no longer shoot at them for fear of striking us, go back to the white rock and wait. You others, keep your ears wide even in fighting. We must put them to flight in a few minutes or else not at all, for we are fewer than they. As soon as I call back, then rush to join Jill at the White Rock, where we will have protection behind us and we can breathe a while. Now, be off, Jill." Feeling terribly alone, Jill ran out about 20 feet, put her right leg back and her left leg forward, and set an arrow to her string. She wished her hands were not shaking so. "That's a rotten shot," she said as her first arrow sped toward the enemy and flew over their heads. But she had another on the string, and the next moment she knew that speed was what mattered. She saw something big and black darting into the faces of the Calormans. That was Farsight. First one man and then another dropped his sword and put up both his hands to defend his eyes. Then one of her own arrows hit a man and another hit a Narnian wolf who had, it seemed, joined the enemy. But she had been shooting only a few seconds when she had to stop. With a flash of swords and of the boar's tusks and Jewel's horn, and with deep baying from the dogs, Tyrion and his party were rushing on their enemies like men in 100 yards race. Jill was astonished to see how unprepared the Calormans seemed to be. She did not realize that this was the result of her work and the eagles. Very few troops can keep on looking steadily to the front if they are getting arrows in their faces from one side and being pecked by an eagle on the other. "Oh, well done," shouted Jill. The king's party was cutting their way right into the enemy. The unicorn was tossing men as you'd toss hay on a fork. Even Eustace seemed to Jill, who after all didn't know very much about swordsmanship, to be fighting brilliantly. The dogs were at the Calorman's throat. It was going to work. It was victory at last. With a horrible cold shock, Jill noticed a strange thing. Though the Calormans were falling at each Narnian sword stroke, they never seemed to get any fewer. In fact, there were actually more of them now than it was when the fight began. There were more every second. They were running up from every side. They were new Calormans. These new ones had spears. There was such a crowd of them she could hardly see her own friends. Then she heard Tyrion's voice crying, "Back to the rock!" The enemy had been reinforced. The drum had done its work. Okay, so they're surrounded. It is the last battle. So next time, chapter 12, Through the Stable Door. Until then.